Welcome to the Africa2100 Podcast, where we try to demystify what it takes to start a business on the continent. This season, we are spotlighting those who were previously in the diaspora and since moved back to the continent and are building ventures and making an impact. Those of you who have been thinking about starting a business and don't know how to go about it, what you should be looking for, you certainly want to hear Kanessa Muluneh tell her story. Our guest for today is Kanessa. And Kanessa, thank you for joining us today. Welcome.
For having me.
Oh, the pleasure is mine. So, to get us started, what does your name mean?
Okay, so names are always complicated as Africans. Um, I have two names because my parents come from two tribes
Hmm.
within Ethiopia. So my name is Kanessa, meaning that means a gift from it's my mom's side. So from my mom's tribe, they're Oromos, and that means a gift from God. And she named me that because I'm the only girl that she had. And then my dad is from a different tribe, the biggest tribe, I would say, uh, in Ethiopia, and he calls me Kestet, which is the same kind of similar translation, just in his language.
In this language. Brilliant. How would you introduce yourself to our audience, Kanessa?
Actually, that is the hardest thing I have been doing, like framing myself. I think now I would frame myself as an investor, maybe. But before I would say entrepreneur. So I'm kind of balancing between these two.
And if you were to give us a little more about your background, what should people know about who is Kanessa?
Kanessa, I am born in Ethiopia. I'm Ethiopian. And no, I'm not half what a lot of people assume. Both my parents are from parts in Ethiopia. I was born in Diredawa, Somalia border, and Djibouti, Somalia border. And by the age of 3, my parents fled to the Netherlands. So I grew up um, in the Netherlands. So both are my home to me, honestly. I think that's always the struggle of the diaspora, where you feel home in two worlds, yet not fully fit in both. Media sometimes describe me as Dutch Ethiopian, depending on where the media is from. But Ethiopian Dutch is what I prefer.
Since you left Ethiopia at 3, are there any childhood memories that you can still reach back and share with us?
Surprisingly, yes. I do remember quite little super random details. I was very young. I do remember it's super random, but it's the shoes that my brothers used to wear. They had these little ornaments on their shoes, and for some reason, I remember them. I also remember the layout of the house where the toilet was, because toilets used to be outside. I used to remember, like, and I asked my mom, like, is it correct that this was the layout of the house? And she was like, "What are you talking about? You were 1 or 2 years old. Why do you know this?" But because of the extreme change in lifestyle, I think my brain somehow captured moments um, of locations or items. But I don't remember. It's also a strange thing. When I was a baby, I got my ears pierced, and I said there were two kids with me when you hold me, and I got my ears pierced. And my mom still thinks it's when she was alive, at least she still used to tell me, like, don't tell this to people, they're gonna say you're crazy. But it was correct. The information was correct. And I think because of the extreme lifestyle change after we fled, it was kind of emotional and traumatic to our family. That's what my brain kind of kept as a treasure or as a memory. But the actual first memory of me in my life was in Holland, when I got a bike from my dad. And um, I was like, "Oh, in Holland, everybody's on a bicycle." And I was like, "What are these things?" I told my dad I want one too, and I got one. And that's my first actual life memory.
Hmm. So there, you talked about when you belonged to two worlds, but you didn't. really belong to the two worlds. Could you share with us some of that tension between life, given your Ethiopian roots and given the culture in the home versus the culture outside of the home?
I think only diasporas will be able to understand this because it's also because of me. It's not about an external factor only. So I grew up in Holland, in Netherlands, which I love. I love the country like no other. I defend it. I don't like it when people talk negative about it because it raised me. I call it my adoption country. It's like I think adopted kids could maybe relate to some extent because you're adopted by the country. I have the passport. I speak Dutch. I know the culture. I know the people, but I'm not one of them, and I will never be one of them. And diaspora often fight for acceptance in these Western countries. It will never happen because they don't know us. You cannot blame them either. I remember with my hair, I used to go to school having braids. My hair smelled because my mom cooked, our local dish, and it was full of spices. They told me, "Oh, your hair stings," but that's their experience. I get it because they don't season their food that much like we do. So of course, it's a strange smell to them. So I understood later in life that it's unknown. We are unknown to them, but they are to us as well to some extent. We are the guests. We know more about the Western culture than they know about our culture. So, yeah, it was very much of a mentality thing growing up. I didn't understand where I was getting along with people, but there was always that one moment where you suddenly don't uh, align with them anymore. And as I grew older, I also didn't want to be similar to them. I was actually starting to see that, oh, we are different, and that's okay, and that's cool. But it's my responsibility to explain it to them. If they tell me something is strange or weird or not fitting, I actually have to respect it or take the time to explain it to them, which is very tiring, by the way.
Well, you seem to have done well with handling that. But as a child, how did you then build that community, given
Well,
this
I,
change?
I think not you don't hear it often, but I was actually a popular girl in class and in school. I kind of made myself familiar with everyone, and everybody knew me. So I built a network pretty quickly. I think that was also my way of protecting myself. Like, oh, if I have this, if I know everyone, then then one day I might need them or need their help or whatever. It was a protection mechanism in that sense to not be bullied because deep down you are insecure. I think every teenager is, but if you're a diaspora, you are insecure simply because you don't have the ability to speak up for yourself, and you don't even know your own culture in order to make it clear to others. um but I think one of the things that people sometimes forget is when I traveled back to Ethiopia, I felt home, but honestly, I wasn't home. It wasn't my home, at least. I felt home from the perspective as in like it's my roots. It was I was home in that sense, but honestly, I couldn't people could hear that I spoke differently. My dialect is different. Even though I speak the language, they can hear that I have a different way of speaking. My mentality is different. And to some extent, they are interested, they listen to you. But then when you think differently, they slam oh, you are too Western. This doesn't fit our society. So, in other words, you don't fit here. One way or the other, they'll slam it in there. So, I have the same issue that I'm facing in the West, just from a different perspective, also in my own country. So I think that's the life of a diaspora. And now, at my age, I'm 35 now. I accepted it. I actually take advantage of both, and this is what it is.
So then it begs the question, why were you determined to return?
Because I think eventually, if you build, it's better to build home, and it's better to invest in yourself and in the in the environment that will appreciate you the most eventually. In the West, I mean, I built there too. I had a company there. I fully withdraw from the West. And that has more to do with the fact that Africa is actually now, it's happening now. People say Africa is the future. It's not the future, it's the present, actually. So that is more from the economical side. But I mean, besides all that, both worlds, wherever you are in this world, you're going to have a hard time building something great. Uh, you have to fight for what you want. So if I'm going to fight anyway, I might as well battle in my own environment where I will feel the most comfortable. And it's also worth it. It's like giving back. So it also has a philanthropy side to it.
So when I want to see if we can go back a moment and see when you started to think, what was it that made you begin to think, I need to go back to the continent. I need to go back to Ethiopia. Was there any specific trigger that set you down that path?
I think the moment when I returned for the first time by myself, not with my parents, by myself, I just booked a ticket one day and I went back without any plan. And you hear on the news that it was dangerous. There's a war going on. There's this, there's that, and then you land and there was nothing. And I'm not denying that there was unrest, but it's not the same as what the news made it out to be, if that makes sense.
Mm.
So to me that was eye-opening, and I think that that trip kind of was a spiritual healing for me. I discovered everything myself. I had to find my way around. I'm no parent, no family member to help me. I stayed in a hotel so I could actually do what I want instead of, being guided by family. And that's it. I never looked back. I think it was that moment of spiritual healing where I discovered everything myself. I started talking to people, and of course, people always warn you, like, "Oh, watch your back. It's dangerous there. It's you get scammed." And of course, everything is there, but I'll figure it out along the way, and I did. I figured it out too. So it's not as bad as they made it be, at least from my experience. And I also got a lot of answers to life questions that I had about, your relationship with your parents is another thing. It's a topic on its own that could be discussed. But I had a very complicated relationship with my parents because we lived outside, but they tried to raise me in a certain way, that aligns more with the African standards, but didn't align with the foreign, meaning the Western standards. But I suddenly, when I went there, I started to understand them. I was like, oh, this is what my mom talks about. Oh, this is the tradition which she mentions. Oh, this is why she tells me this and this. So it's like a spiritual healing in that sense.
Mm. So you've said that word multiple times now, spiritual healing. Can you tell us a little more what you mean when you say spiritual healing?
I think it's like as a diaspora, there are many pieces missing to the puzzle in your life, a lot, many, and they're being filled with whatever you learn in the West or wherever you grew up. By the way, it doesn't have to be the West, but in my case, it was the West. So you have to imagine, like, my picture, or my puzzle, I should say. Everybody has one puzzle that fits, and maybe you're missing one or two pieces because you're working on that or things happened. But for diaspora, that puzzle is there are different colors to that puzzle, so it's not one matching whole, if it makes sense, because that puzzle is filled with information from a different culture, different part of the world. And that's where Africans tell me, like, you have a different mentality. Your mentality doesn't match the Africans, but that's because my puzzle has is filled with different pieces. A little bit from Africa, a little bit from Europe, a little bit from maybe the Western media. Everything is different. So it's chaotic. It's really chaotic in that sense. So to try to fix your puzzle, trying to take that mentality or that part, the not non-matching puzzle out and replacing that with new um puzzle, that's the spiritual healing I'm talking about. Meaning, okay, oh, this is why I shouldn't respond the way I used to respond, because that's what my mom used to teach me. The thing is, in the West, I used to go against her. Like, just to give you an example, like, the religion is one big thing. In the West, people barely have religions, and if you have a religion, you basically have the freedom to do whatever you want. Um, in our country, or in most African countries, is one of the most important parts, religion. And I never understood why she kept pushing it on me, but that's how she was raised. And suddenly when I went back, I saw how religion was applied in the society. So I started to understand, like, okay, this is how, you know, this is how they look at it, and this is why she kind of, uh she was not forcing me, she was just teaching me that this is the way of life. It's just a way of treating it or understanding things, that makes life easier. I'm not saying that I replaced every puzzle. I'm just saying I understand what they were saying and what they were teaching me. That makes life easier, and that made a lot of, my relationship with my parents made it smoother.
So I now see and understand the healing. You fully found yourself, parts of yourself that you didn't know you were missing. You discovered
Yes.
them through this experience. Were there other things that were big surprise or that challenged your previous perceptions of Ethiopia, of the continent?
Not really. I think the biggest surprise is definitely that it was not as scary as they made it out to be. And honestly, here my parents played a big role as well. Because of their experience, their them being fed up with what happened in the past, the political issues, that combined gave me such a negative perception, like such a negative view on not just Ethiopia, but Africa in general. It's like hell on earth almost, the way they make it out to be, not just the parents but every diaspora out there. And then let's add the news to it, let's add the negative PR to it. I mean, it's not for the weak.
Not that you are the weak, given that you're a serial entrepreneur, and the life of an entrepreneur is one that you have to be resilient. Uh, but if we could shift gears a moment, you, as I mentioned earlier on, you're a serial entrepreneur. Let's go back to that first venture you built. What critical lesson did you take from that made you believe or gave you the confidence that, oh, I can do many more of these? Because people do one and it kills them, but you've done multiple. So, what is it from that first one that you've learned that has fueled subsequent ventures that you built?
I think, like I just said, Africa is not for the weak. There's a lot of, you need to create the path. Generally, somewhere else, probably the path is already created. You just follow the path and you start your business. In many African countries, that's not how it works. Although now it has changed a lot, I must say. From the moment I started until now, within 3 years, a lot has changed, a lot. So, doing it the African way, as they say it, through people, it's just in good faith. That's the recipe for failure. That's what I learned. You really have to understand that countries in Africa have laws, and you can actually get protected by laws, and you can, hire lawyers, and the right lawyers at least, in order to make it work. But you do need the community or network in that sense. Without a network, it's useless in Africa. It's not like in Europe where you Google a company that offers a service, you call, and hopefully, with one call, the work gets done. Never happened in Africa. So, you need to build a network, and that's what I started doing first, getting to know people, working on my name, working on, getting people to know me, and before I even launched the project, products, or a business.
The your first venture though was while you were in the Netherlands, or was that
Yes.
okay? And can you kind of give us the background, the found why did you build that first? What was the lesson from that first one that gave you the confidence that you could do it multiple times?
So that it was a tool back then. So this was a long time ago. Uh, every time someone asks me, it actually confronts me with how old I am. I was 20 back then. I'm 35 now. So imagine how far back that was. This was pre-COVID, pre everything that we know today. Uh, Working from home was not a common thing at all. So this tool, I was working in the medical field. For the ones that don't know, I went to medical school, and my professor told me you need to write a paper. I said okay, what paper, but he was really like, in the Netherlands they allow students to do quite some research, and if it's a good research they actually use it in practice as well. So he said find me a problem, uh, and find a solution to it and write me a paper. All right. uh, I went to my internship. I looked around, is there anything I can improve or solve? And I noticed that in hospitals it was mainly male, it was male dominated by okay, not it's not always the case, but in some hospitals doctors back then used to be male only, and the staff around them were women, from nurses to the assistants to administrative team. They were women. So I said, or let's say I noticed, that if somebody is sick, if something happens, if anything, at home would have happened, it's the woman that sacrifices her time, even if she works full time. She had to go home, take care of whatever is happening. I said, why just wait for the women to be here physically present all the time? She could do the phone consultations. There are phone consultations, if you have a sore throat, headache, coughing, you don't need to come to the hospital, honestly. You can just call and talk about your, complaints, or your pain or whatever you have, and get medication sent to your home or to your pharmacy. I said this could be done from home. The only thing I need to do is reroute the line to her home line, and give her access to the medical files. That's it. I said, that's my solution. I'm going to work on it. So eventually, the rerouting part wasn't the hardest. And a lot of people would assume that is the hardest. That is not the hardest. Getting access to medical files outside a medical center was one of the hardest things I had to deal with. And I was just 20 years old. I had no experience in business, I had no experience in anything. I was scared of men in suits. I was so insecure. I didn't know anything. Um, so eventually, I borrowed money from my dad to pay lawyers and everything, uh, to get it, figured out. Did my research, found a way eventually. So the phone got rerouted, and I had access to the medical files from my home in a secured space, basically. Because there are privacy laws. It's not like it's, you log in on Twitter, on Facebook. It's not like that. You're dealing with a lot of sensitive information. So did all that, uh, give my professor my paper, and he said, go for it. You should actually launch this project because you already spent so much time and money on it. And I did. It turned it into a business that I later on sold for quite some money.
So it sounds like you found a problem, you fell in love with the problem, and you monetized that opportunity.
Yeah, I think, if I would go back to your question, what made you, you know, repeat that, it's definitely finding the problem and finding the solution and market it. In my case, I was already in the hospital scene, so it was a matter of, hey, would you like to use this product? Here it is. That's it. So I was already marketing my product through my internship. So I also tested the product. I knew there was demand for it, so I continued. So I said I'm going to repeat that same recipe, and I did.
And
Find a problem, Now I'm more advanced. I even create problems sometimes. You can also create problems, and then you sell the solution.
So it's you've since shifted after using that recipe multiple times, and now you no longer build from the ground up.
I
You
do not.
now seem to you now identifying others who have the solutions you have, and leveraging that or investing in them. Could you tell us how are you then managing to fill that void of a builder? Because a builder is forever a builder. You will
Yes.
you get ideas. It doesn't stop you from getting those ideas.
No,
How,
it still doesn't stop. No, that's it will forever haunt me. But I think it's also the time. I have to manage time. At some point, right now, I have still my clothing business, which is going like crazy. I bought the manufacturing company. Now I'm buying another manufacturing company, another country to expand. And then I have, I actually sell the products as well. It's a big business now. But I also invest in others because I feel like not every idea I come up with is the best. Other people can do better. Um, so I started investing in other projects, and I basically make money without doing anything, which sounds more ideal. Once you have money, it's really a matter of investing it the right way so it can keep making money for you.
and what's your investment criteria or philosophy?
So for me, it's really if there's something I'm really pro at the moment, it's really my marketing, PR strategies. For Africa, it's really working. So what I do is I invest, and sometimes I kind of enforce my marketing help because I feel like marketing PR in Africa is just not the level I'm used to or known. Like it's not like the West. And there, if one of the things that you can learn from diasporas is we grew up out there. We bringing back the knowledge with us. So whatever worked there, we're trying to bring it here because why not? Africa, we have the resources, we have everything in place, but we need to improve it a lot. So we can use diasporas to bring the knowledge to the continent. So marketing, I kind of enforce my marketing skills on them so I have control over the value of the investment. So I make sure there's sales ongoing.
So, if I understood that correctly, when you invest in a company, you take over the marketing of their product or services. Is that
Generally, yes. Yeah.
okay? Uh, and did I understand or hear that you are currently acquiring a mining company? How does that fit into your portfolio?
Yes, we are working on that, but that is, I must say, that's also the one of the most difficult industries, honestly, to get into. It's so politically sensitive. Um, and most of the time they require an extreme amount of investment, but we're looking into it right now. Um, in Zambia and also in Ethiopia. Uh, we are trying to acquire, well, not acquire, it's just a stake. We
Okay, investor. Right.
yes, invest. Um, but right now we're also working on a cocoa plantation. Agriculture is really my favorite because it's so underestimated in Africa. Cocoa plantation in Uganda. The next we're working on is in Namibia. Yeah, there are quite some investments going on, but it's a process.
Right. The question then, especially with farming, then becomes the challenges. What are some of the unique challenges you're facing, and maybe even share a specific scenario as you shift from entrepreneurship to, well, from building to investing, and relative to experiences which you had in the West, to borrow your words.
I think the biggest challenge for me is honestly that I have no control. And basically, it's not my company. It's not my. I can advise, but that's it. It's I have no control over how fast things are going, what direction they're heading, besides advising, because you generally have a board of advisors. That's something I really have to get used to. That's why one of the reasons why I never welcomed investors in my companies before, because I would lose control because of this board of investors. Um, it's I think that is for me my personal biggest challenge. But if you ask from the company, like the business side, investments is really dealing with governments right now. The biggest challenge for investments generally, like the whole government uh situation, is scary in Africa sometimes.
Could you tell us more?
Because the countries, most African countries, not all, but most African countries, I mean, governments are not very stable. They can change a law overnight. Sometimes I wake up and there's a new law, never talked about, never announced, just it's there. um and that has a negative impact on us, because we convinced, it's not just me investing. Sometimes I ask other investors, because you don't always gamble with your own money. That would be a silly thing to do. Sometimes you gamble with other people's money, and it's a scary thing to do. And yeah, but then again, the return on investment is also super high. So the way you think as an investor on the continent is really, you cash cow it. You put in a certain amount. If it doesn't make it back with before the next election, then you generally don't invest, because a new leader means new rules and a lot of chaos. So, and then you have the repatriation issue. The repatriation of funds is a nightmare in some countries. In some countries, even completely impossible. Um, of course, there are professionals for that. Tax, okay, but tax is everywhere, honestly. It's not just an African thing, but people assume there is not much tax in Africa. There's a lot of tax. You have the official tax, and I call it the unofficial tax. You have to deal with it all.
But yet you still invest. So now help somebody who's listening to this understand why you still choose to invest in businesses on the continent, given these challenges which you just shared.
Because it's not the big, like, it's not, it's still not a lot of challenges. If you look at it, it's not like I had no challenges in the West.
Mm.
There the competition is fierce. I'm dealing with racism. I'm dealing with all kinds of things that I didn't like either. So if it's a fight, that's what I was saying earlier. If I'm fighting for my position anyway, I might as well fight it in my own country.
Yeah.
So, or at least in my own continent in this case.
If you lost all of your ventures today, how would you go about rebuilding and why?
If I lost everything today, first of all, I would not rebuild. First year, I would take off. I will go somewhere in the middle of nowhere, live with a very small tribe, and calm my mind. That's the first thing. And then the second question might be, do you come back? Maybe not. But if I come back, I'll just find a new problem and build a business from there.
Mm.
But I
Interesting.
don't mind disappearing with a tribe that lives with no money and just lives the old fashioned way.
What stops you from doing that now, though?
Responsibilities. I would ruin a lot of people's lives if I do that now.
When you see a lot of people, can you tell us more?
So, like I just said, the investments of other people. A lot of people depend on me. I basically am in charge of their lives with their money. Some people just put all their savings into my investment projects. Um, and on top of that, I'm a mom of three. So if I disappear, obviously I would disappear with my kids. I don't know how
Again?
happy they would be. But yeah, there's just things that I cannot do right now. Also, I'm the one in charge of my husband's career. I do his marketing, I do his PR, I do his everything. So yeah, I mean, I'm in charge of a lot of people's lives. I take care. My mom is no longer here, unfortunately, but I used to take care of her. My dad right now, I take care of everyone that are important to me.
For those with families, you just mentioned you have three kids. How old are they? How old are your kids?
Right now, so almost, no, 2 years, almost 6, and almost 8.
Okay. So for those with families, I'm sure they would take me to the guillotine if I don't ask you the question. How have you juggled this transition which you've made whilst running your businesses and maintaining multiple locations or
I hire
multiple
help.
homes in multiple locations?
I hire help. I think that's something a lot of people, women, don't tell you. If you have a certain comfortable lifestyle, you pay for help. And before it was also my mom helping, of course, but right now we invested a lot in getting the right people around us, but that also goes for our kids. There are certain people who are allowed near our kids, and my job is to make their life comfortable so they can make my kids' life comfortable. So uh, I have help. I have a nanny. I also homeschool my kids, which makes it easier for them to come along on trips. We have a private teacher for them, uh, and we have a babysitter in case we need more help. No, that is an infrastructure that we built, and a lot of people have an opinion about this, which I don't understand because our parents also didn't raise us alone. There was a whole village that literally helped our parents, but these days there's no village, and I see no reason, and I take no pride in that mentality of where one woman juggles everything and does everything by herself. I don't want to be that. I don't want to burn out. I take care of myself and my family.
So it sounds like you have a village. You've
I pay
created
for
a
that village.
village.
So I pay
Yeah,
for that village.
okay.
It's not like my mom.
So if one can't afford to build or create their own village, then they're out of luck. Or what would your
Listen,
recommendation
it's
be
it's
to
not
them?
like I was able to afford it when I had my first baby. You build it was my vision. It was in my vision all along. I just adjust to the situation. Okay, so my firstborn was there. I'm responsible for him. So I had to make sure that I'm going to build a life where, you know, he was uh, being taken care of. In the early stages, I had my mom, luckily. She helped out a lot. But at some point, I knew it was not sustainable because she needed care as well. So you work towards a lifestyle. If it's your plan, if you really want it, if you really want that vision to create that vision, then you'll find a way. It sounds cliche maybe, but it's true.
So let's talk about the local community. How do you give back to uh, the local community, or how are you impacting the local community?
So my favorite way is to share knowledge. I openly talk. I don't hide secrets. I openly talk about what I do, how I do it. And people always tell me like, "Aren't you scared that people copy you?" I hope they copy me. I really hope so. Because there is no winning alone. I don't believe in that. I think the more people copy you, the healthier it is in the sense that if there's competition, then you will work harder. You will be motivated to create something new. You will get inspiration and you will also learn from other people's failures. So I don't have to fail all the time by myself. So, yes, I do hope that people learn from me or share their knowledge so we could grow together. Because also, I've seen my parents' generation send endless amounts of money. Nothing changed, not much change. It's just for the daily help, sure, but not like you don't build a future or an industry for them. I've seen people build schools. I've seen people build hospitals, which is all nice. But on the long run, the building is there. But what is the quality also going to be there? Are we going to invest in actual quality education where the kids can be entrepreneurs or could be the things that they want to be? I didn't see that. So it was really, what I noticed is knowledge lacking. So I would like to give back through my knowledge, but also with Nile, we do give back 10% of the returns of what we make. We would like to reinvest it by creating job opportunities. So one of the investments is also a mobile game. We do really want to establish an industry, mobile game industry, or not just mobile, but game industry, and have the local talents there in Africa instead of constantly, outsourcing everything. So we do give back through knowledge and job opportunities.
So, what I deduce from that is you prefer to empower the people rather than uh, just building something in the hope that it will make their lives better. Is that
And
accurate
not
assessment?
just empower through words. We also, sometimes I actually pay for. So you sometimes you need advice from lawyers, accountants, especially finance knowledge is really low, like lacking at this point in the continent. So sometimes I do really pay for actual finance professionals to help local industries.
Is there a framework you have that those listening should be aware of where they can leverage or get access to that knowledge that's and your experiences? How are you
Yes, it's
disseminating that?
right now it's through my own communities, but I'm really trying to find a way to do it on a mass scale, which is not easy because in Africa, there are so many languages, there are so many tribes, people. It's really hard to find one way that works for everyone.
Finally, Kanessa, for those diasporans who are contemplating returning or investing in the continent, what would you say to them?
Do it. You should really do it. But try to do it the official way and not through your cousins or aunts or random person that you know. Don't send money to them and expect them to do what you want or think they will do. It's not how it works. The amount of disputes I see, of people sending money to some trusted person and the money not ending up there where they hoped, buying a building or a house or whatever. It's really disheartening. And this is why a lot of diasporas are not so keen on returning. Do it the official way.
When you say the official way, could you elaborate?
Well, start with an official lawyer, for example. Not your like a random one, like an experienced lawyer, corporate lawyer. Inform yourself. Talk to multiple lawyers. Just to save $1,000. You know, to save $1,000, they rather not speak to a lawyer, inform themselves, and get the right information just to save that $1,000. But then they send out, I don't know, 50,000, $100,000 to buy some building or invest in a building and lose all that. Makes no sense. Stop being foolish. And the people who they trust, they're not professionals. They're just people you love or like, or you spend time with. But these are not necessarily professionals in that field.
That's clear as mud. Any final words you have to share with our audience before we wrap up?
I think the only thing I would like to say is I said it before already, but Africa is happening now. You're missing out. There are even foreign investors. The Chinese are taking over. I mean, our time to return is now. If we don't do it now, then when will we do it? Um, so, yeah, I think it's time to stop listening to fear and wherever we are. I think most are in the West. So it's not comfortable. You got used to the discomfort, but it doesn't mean it's comfortable. Uh, if it's uncomfortable anyway, why not just be uncomfortable in your own home and make it, comfortable there and invest at least back in your own space and your own country? Why always fight for, something that is not ours anyway?
Brilliantly said. I couldn't have put it any better. Thank you so much, Kanessa, for sharing with us. And thank you for the journey you've taken and for all that you're doing. For
Thank you.
those listening, you've heard it. Embrace the discomfort. And what better place to embrace it than where you call home, or originally home? So embrace the discomfort. And as well, don't be scared. Don't let fear drive you, as we heard from Kanessa. She's living it. She's illustrating that it indeed is possible to return back and to make an impact, more so than wherever you may be. If you've enjoyed or liked anything you heard today, please don't forget to subscribe. We look forward to seeing you at the next episode. Bye for now.